Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome everyone to the Sunrise San Diego Justicia show. We are the San Diego hub of the Sunrise movement, one of over 400 all over the country. Together, we are a movement of young people committed to stopping the climate crisis and providing a future of justice, equity, and liberation. We are here this afternoon to celebrate Chicanx history and culture, and to highlight the impacts of colonialism on our region and how it's impacting the health and quality of life of people in our community and beyond.
As we get started, we need to first acknowledge the fact that we are on stolen land. This is Kumeyaay land. In fact, what we know is present-day San Diego County, to as far east as the Colorado River and as far south past the border to Ensenada, is all Kumeyaay land. They have lived here for over 12,000 years, for more than 600 generations. Yet their rights are still being impeded today. The Kumeyaay are currently having to fight back against Trump's planned border wall that would destroy graves and artifacts. Right now, they need people to join them in solidarity at their prayer camp, Camp Landback. If you're able to join them, our chat moderators are dropping a link to the application below. If you're joining us from another region and would like to learn more about the people whose land you occupy, our chat moderators are also dropping a link to an interactive map in the chat.
So you may be thinking, why is an environmental organization talking about race? But that's because climate justice is racial justice, is queer justice, is disability justice, is economic justice. They are all tied together and therefore the same issue. And this is a core principle that Sunrise adheres to. It is projected that on our present course, in the coming decades, there will be millions of climate refugees who will be displaced from their homes in places across Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia due to extreme weather events. Heat waves, water scarcity, famine, you name it. Yet, these regions and communities contribute very little to the problems that are making their homes unlivable. And these aren't just issues affecting parts of the world that may seem far off. In the United States, communities of color will be the first to bear the brunt of the worst of the climate crisis, as we have seen with instances such as Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans and Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. Environmental racism can be seen destroying the homes and lands of BIPOC communities in cases such as the Dakota Access Pipeline being built through the Standing Rock Indigenous Reservation. After, and in local communities, such as Barrio Logan being subjected to terrible air quality due to the industrial plants and freeways being built through the neighborhood. So we were initially hoping to replicate and hopefully surpass the success of the September climate strikes from last year. But as the pandemic worsened, it became abundantly clear that it would not be safe or feasible, and there was so much more that needed to take priority right now. Chicanx people are being hit the hardest in the rate of infection and economically, which means that the communities of Logan and South Bay are being most impacted. We also recognize that this is largely to do with the racist zoning laws that have been forced on these communities that lead to some of the highest rates of asthma in the state.
Now, although September is considered Hispanic Heritage Month, Sunrise San Diego has used this month for a re-education series highlighting Chicanx history and health and quality of life impacts of colonialism on our community. We choose not to celebrate the word Hispanic as it is a misguided blanket term when you consider the complex identities within the Latinx community. Additionally, Hispanic is very Eurocentric and it denies our indigenous heritage. Therefore, we see Latino and Latina as a work around this by including people from all Latin countries without gendered subtext. That is why we see Latinx as a far more favorable and inclusive term. Now, we chose to use the term Chicanx to celebrate this culture specifically that is so rich in San Diego. We chose this term in spelling for a few reasons. First, the term rejects any nationalist identity, as opposed to Mexican American or Latin American, and instead emphasizes an identity rooted in political activism and decolonization. Secondly, we use the X spelling as opposed to the CH spelling as it aligns with the indigenous etymology of the term. Finally, we use X at the end to make it a gender-neutral term that is inclusive to all gender identities.
And while we always hope to share knowledge and different perspectives on history, we also realize that we are still learning ourselves and are on a path of growth. So this has been as much of an education for us as it is for you, our audience.
Now, one of our goals this afternoon is to raise funds for Detention Resistance, a non-hierarchical grassroots organization dedicated to building self-determination for the refugees that the state has criminalized. And you can find the link for this fundraiser in our chat. All funds go directly to our compas in the Otay Mesa Detention Center, where they experience complete medical neglect. And this has resulted in the highest rates of COVID-19 of any detention center in the country. This was intended to be a 2-day event with us yesterday at the protest organized by We Stand United in solidarity against the myriad victims of state violence perpetrated by ICE. And thanks to Nurse Dawn Wooten, a hero, we know they are committing forced sterilization against migrant refugees, many of whom have fled their homes in part due to US imperialism. Unfortunately, the protest against ICE was postponed yesterday after movement leaders were targeted and pepper sprayed, beaten, and arrested. Conrad from We Stand United San Diego will be on with us a little later to talk about this incident. And so, continuing, we want to highlight the graphics that our beautiful art and research team have compiled over the past month, highlighting Chicanx activists and art and culture.
So our first week, we wanted to focus on women because oftentimes women are at the forefront of social movements, yet their names are not as well known as their male counterparts. So for week 1 of our series, we wanted to highlight some of the many women of the Chicanx movement. So starting off with Gloria Anzaldúa. She is a queer Chicana activist, teacher, and writer who is known for her work in advancing Chicana feminist theory. During her graduate studies at University of Texas at Austin, she taught a course called La Mujer Chicana and was inspired to elevate Chicano voices as she realized that there was a lack of written material about them. She used her writing as a platform to heal from her own experiences of loneliness and marginalization. She produced literary works such as Borderlands, La Frontera, The New Mestiza, which detailed her life, explored the merging of cultures on the Mexican and Texas border, and the inequalities that persisted. She also co-edited an anthology of multicultural feminist writings called This Bridge Called My Back, writings by radical women of color.
Next.
Josefina Fierro de Bright was a Chicana leader who helped organize resistance against discrimination in the American Southwest during the Great Depression. Born in Mexicali, Mexico in 1914 and brought to California shortly after, she grew up in farm labor camps as the daughter of a bordera who served meals to migrant workers in Maderna. Josefina gave up her studies at UCLA to become an organizer. And as executive secretary of El Congreso de Pueblos de Habla Española, the first national Latinx civil rights organization, from 1939 to the mid-1940s, she organized protests against racism in the LA schools, against the exclusion of Chicanx youth from public swimming pools, and against police brutality. In 1942, she was a key figure in organizing the Sleepy Lagoon Defense Committee. Along with Luisa Moreno, she helped to coordinate El Congreso's support for Spanish-speaking workers in the furniture, shoe manufacturing, electrical, garment, and longshoremen's unions.
San Diego native, Hermina Acosta Enrique, otherwise known as the Chitzen, was an indigenous activista and founder of Ballet Folklorico en Atzlan, a dance studio dedicated to preserving the indigenous aspects of Mexican folklore while creating new works complementing traditional forms. He also co-founded the Centro Cultural de la Raza in San Diego's Balboa Park, a nonprofit cultural center whose mission is to create, preserve, promote, and educate about Chicanx, Mexicano, Native American, and Latinx art and culture. Then we have Dolores Huerta, Born April 10th, 1930 in Dawson, New Mexico. Predominantly raised by her mother in Stockton, California after her parents' divorce, Huerta was drawn to activism at a young age, participating in many high school clubs, and in 1955, at the age of 25, co-founding the Stockton branch of the Community Service Organization, or CSO, which fought for economic improvements for Latinx people. It was in the CSO that she met Cesar Chavez. The two found that they shared a common goal of improving the lives of Latinx farm workers. However, they could not convince the CSO to organize on behalf of farm workers, and in 1962, the duo resigned from the CSO and founded the National Farm Workers Associations, later known as the United Farm Workers of America, or UFW. In 1965, Huerta directed the UFW's national boycott during the Delano grape strike, advocating for exploited farm workers. The boycott resulted in the entire California grape industry signing a 3-year collective bargaining contract with UFW in 1970. In addition to her work with UFW, Huerta had successfully lobbied for laws to improve the lives of farm workers and Latinos, including a 1960 bill to permit Spanish-speaking people to take the California driver's exam in Spanish, 1963 legislation to extend aid to families with dependent children and to farm workers, and the 1975 California Agricultural Labor Relations Act. Throughout her career, Huerta was arrested 22 times for nonviolent civil disobedience. Since 2002, Huerta has been the president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation, an organization committed to organizing and creating leadership opportunities for civic engagement and policy advocacy in health and environment, education, and youth development, and economic development. Huerta has received numerous accolades over the course of her career, including the Maggie Award from Planned Parenthood, her birthday, April 10th, being recognized as Dolores Huerta Day in California and Washington, and has received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama. She continues to direct the Dolores Huerta Foundation at the age of 90.
So this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the amazing women that participated in the Chicanx movement. And I guarantee if you do your own further research, you'll find some more incredible women who were never mentioned in your history books.
So, first on our bill this afternoon, we are highlighting the work of detention resistance, who we mentioned earlier. First, we have a video testimony about the medical neglect taking place in the detention. Following that will be a poem written by an a compa being detained in Otay Mesa. And then we'll be having a phone call with another person currently detained inside the center. A core principle of Sunrise is that we share our stories. And so a point that Sunrise would like to bring to attention is that of solidarity and of broader human rights. It is the tendency of genocidal movements to dehumanize groups that are considered to be lesser or undesirable. We saw this in 2018 as Fox News spread fear of a migrant caravan. It is also the tendency, to a degree, of some liberals to fetishize the disenfranchised. A case of this, for the sake of example, might be some well-to-do Harvard student who spends a few weeks in a developing country to help a handful of people in a few marginal ways, takes a couple of photographs of them with people there, feels good about themselves, and then goes on to become a corporate banker who will exploit people elsewhere. What we're trying to accomplish here is to humanize those subject to the abuses in these detention centers, and we feel the need to act in solidarity with them because these are our siblings, and our hearts break knowing their pain. So, we have the video.
Mi nombre es Cristian García. Estoy compañero que se llama Rosendo de la Sancha Mondragón, que está tirado en el piso. Tiene más de 50 minutos porque tiene una infección en la pierna y le está saliendo sangre, no puede caminar y le estamos hablando para que llame a médico y el oficial no hace nada. Vino el sargento, el capitán y no hicieron nada y está tirado en el suelo. No quieren hacer nada. Esa infección la tiene ya como de hace unos 5 días, 5 días, una semana. Pero tiene 50 minutos que está tirado en el suelo. Le estamos diciendo que lo lleven a médico, que le sequen, no quieren hacer nada. Ahorita apenas lo están subiendo a una silla de ruedas. 50 minutos después de que no puede caminar, y no es ni los médicos, es un guardia de desesperación cuando veo lo que pasa en mi nación, a consecuencia de la corrupción, desesperación, lo que siento al pedir asilo, pero me encuentro con los obstáculos de migración, desesperación, al tratar de obtener alguna resolución, pero es difícil por estar en el centro de detención, desesperación, por esta opresión y anhelo con todo el corazón alcanzar mi liberación. Desesperación. Escrito por Cristian García. Gracias.
Those were some pretty powerful videos. And for our English-speaking viewers, we'd like to share the translation of that poem. But please keep in mind that oftentimes there isn't a perfect translation between languages for words and feelings. So the translation goes roughly as follows. Despair when I see what happens in immigration. Despair what I feel when requesting asylum, but I find the obstacles in immigration. Despair when trying to get some resolution, but it is difficult to be in the detention center. Despair for this oppression, and I yearn with all my heart to achieve my release. Despair. Now, we're waiting on our compas from the Otay Mason Detention Center to join us. So in the meantime, how about we check on our fundraiser? How are we doing?
So far, of our fundraiser, we've raised $355 out of our $3,000 goal. So we're already at 10%, over 10% of our goal, and we're not even a quarter of the way through our stream. So
that is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, and please keep the donations coming. All funds go directly to the compas in the detention center, where they have to pay for things like soap during this pandemic. They have to pay for food at the commissary. They have to pay for basic things that you'd think would be provided to them and aren't.
Minor apologies all. We are waiting for our compas or preparing to speak.
Okay, well, as we wait for them, maybe we should highlight some of our week 2 slides.
Not a bad idea. Yeah.
So for week 2, we wanted to focus on the Chicanx movement and more of the key people and organizations that made it possible.
So, first we have the Chicanx movement. El movimiento has its roots in the indigenous communities who have been fighting segregation, economic oppression, and discrimination since the beginning of settler colonization in the Southwest. The Chicanx movement, as it is known today, formed around workers' rights in the 1930s. Leaders like Dolores Huerta, Antonio Rios, and David Sanchez recognized the need for organized resistance against state oppression and formed a variety of community aid, advocacy, and defense groups to answer this call. By attacking systems of oppression built by the United States from many angles, such as East Los Angeles walkouts and the Day Without Immigrants, they continue to win major educational victories and workers' rights policy victories that benefit all people. They continue to face mass surveillance, police brutality, and redlining by racist state forces who are fearful of justice, pero la raza unida jamás será vencida.
And of course, we can't talk about the Chicanx movement without mentioning Cesar Chavez. So Cesar Chavez, as we all know, is one of the most prominent figures in the history of workers' rights in the United States. Born in Yuma, Arizona in 1927 to migrant farm workers, he spent his life working to improve the conditions of farm workers through nonviolent acts, notably boycotts and hunger strikes. Chavez worked to organize the National Farm Workers Association in 1962, later renamed the United Farm Workers Union in 1972. And in 1966, led the Delano Grape Strike and a 340-mile march to Sacramento. Throughout his life, Chavez organized several other marches, strikes, and fasts to bring awareness to the unfair working conditions, like the harmful effects pesticides have on workers' health. His leadership and dedication to the rights of farm workers led to the creation of his birthday, March 31st, as a federally recognized holiday in the United States. We shall strike, we shall organize boycotts, we shall demonstrate and have political campaigns. We shall pursue the revolution we have proposed. We are sons and daughters of the farm workers' revolution, a revolution of the poor seeking bread and justice.
Next, we have the Brown Berets. Now, the Brown Berets are amongst the organizations that are integral to the Chicanx movement. Founded in 1966 as Young Chicanos for Community Action, before becoming the Brown Berets, named for the uniform they wear, which are a symbol of the pride in their culture, race, and history. They also symbolize our anger, the militancy of the fight against the long history of injustice against the Chicanx people in the US, according to founding member Carlos Montes. The Brown Berets movements largely revolved around farm worker struggles, educational reform, anti-Vietnam War activism, and continued organizing against police brutality. They quickly grew to have over 36 branches throughout the United States, especially in Aztlán, aka the American Southwest. This resulted in successes such as El Barrio Free Clinic, their own newspaper La Causa, and the Chicanx Blowouts, or East LA Walkouts, of 1968, which resulted in reforms that increased Chicanx school enrollment by 1,800% the following year, amongst many other accomplishments. Our local chapter, the Brown Berets de Aztlán, were instrumental in the creation of Chicano Park and are still very active in our community today. We are opposed to the laws that do not protect our people. We are opposed to laws that actually kill our people. A quote from Dr. David Sanchez, founder of the Brown Berets.
And the Mexican American Youth Organization, also known as MAYO, formed in San Antonio in 1967 by Willie C. Velasquez, Mario Compean, Ignacio Perez, and Juan Patlan. Oh, and Ernesto Cortezan. MAYO was inspired by the nonviolent and grassroots strategies of the civil rights movement in the American South and the New Mexico movement. The core membership of the organization was largely Mexican-American university students, and in its 1970 peak, they counted 1,000 active members across the country. The Aztec warrior stood as their symbol, and MAYO fought for 3 core needs of the Mexican-American community: economic independence, local control of education, and political strength. Throughout the 1960s, they organized actions like the 1965 Crusade for Justice and the 1967 takeover of the Tierra Maria County Courthouse in New Mexico. Their youth power did not last, however, and the movement weakened and disbanded by 1978. But their legacy as the militant arm of the Chicano movement is remembered for its active and agitational promotion of Mexican-American rights. Whether they like it or not, it is immaterial. If they call us radicals or subversives or separatists, that's their problem. This is our home, and this is our homeland, and we are entitled to it. We are the host. Everyone else is a guest. Jose Angel Gutierrez.
Call from
Alberto Mendoza.
a detainee at. To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail. To deny this call,
And
press 2.
finally, a movement is not complete without its art and artists.
Your call has been disconnected. Goodbye.
Wait, are we not live?
Apologies, we're having some technical difficulties.
When you're doing a live show, you're bound to have some sort of technical difficulty, right?
Thank you from our producer. Let's see. So, Ramon Chonky Sanchez. Right.
Okay, so Ramon Chunky Sanchez, very close to my heart. I personally knew him. He was born and raised in Blythe, California. Chunky was taught traditional Mexican music from his mother and uncles, and he began to write his own music based on his and his family's experience as farm laborers. Chunky was often requested by Cesar Chavez himself to perform at rallies for the United Farm Workers Union. He was later recruited with other farm laborers to study music at San Diego State University, then a college, bringing him to San Diego. Chunky then co-founded Los Alacranes Mojados, which translates to the wetback scorpions, along with his brother Ricardo. About the name, Chunky said, "We used the negative term among our own people. We tried to give it a positive connotation through the music. After a while, we cut the name down because it was too long. And besides that, we kind of like to joke around. People ask us, well, how come you're not the Mojados anymore? I say, because we got amnesty." Chunky always used his art as a platform to fight for Chicanx and economic justice. And in 2004, he received the Cesar Chavez Humanitarian Award. His granddaughter, Barbara Ibarra, said this about Chunky. Chunky and other musicians often were called upon to keep spirits high and empower people. Chunky sadly passed away in 2016, but his music helped define a movement. If you're looking for some of his songs to listen to, Chicano Park Samba and Linda Chicana are must-listens.
We have Salvador Roberto Torres, who was born in 1936, was raised in Barrio Logan. Torres witnessed the disruption of his community as hundreds of homes, including his father's house, were demolished to make way for the I-5 freeway and the Coronado Bridge. Torres joined in the community fight for Chicano Park, which would make the space underneath the freeway junction, then the planned site of a highway patrol station, a community park. To this end, Torres envisioned the concrete pillars upholding the freeways, which had destroyed his home, as canvases for grand murals which would embody Chicanx culture. In 1969, he created the Chicano Park Monumental Public Mural Program and recruited other artists to lobby for permission from the city and paint their murals. Their efforts made Chicano Park the largest collection of Chicanx murals in the world, making San Diego the epicenter of mural movements in the US. On mural making, Torres has said, "It is the muralists of San Diego that have been dedicated not just to painting murals, but on becoming involved. One cannot just stay in the studio and paint a mural and then run off. One has to be involved. Our concept of the land is very important."
Yolanda Lopez was born in 1942 and is a painter, printmaker, educator, and film producer. Lopez was born and raised in Logan Heights and later attended San Francisco State University, where she got involved with the Third World Liberation, which awakened her to the fact that her gender and ethnicity influenced her position in society. A theme which can be seen throughout her work. Lopez is best known for her Virgen de Guadalupe series, which depicted ordinary Chicanas, including her grandmother, maids, seamstresses, and other domestic laborers, as the Virgen de Guadalupe, which you can see on the screen. They're beautiful.
Victor Ochoa was born in 1948 and was born and raised in Los Angeles by a family of activists. After graduating high school, Ochoa moved to San Diego to attend college, where he partook in the park takeover of what would become Chicano Park by painting murals with fellow artists. Ochoa is one of the founders of the Centro Cultural de la Raza in Balboa Park, which has the mission to create, preserve, promote, and educate about Chicano, Mexicano, Latino, and indigenous art and culture. Ochoa has painted over 100 murals, many of which are in San Diego. If you don't mind, Stream, I would like to check in with we contacted our compas in the detention center.
Yep. How we doing, producer Ito?
Hello. Oh, sorry. I was just coming in to check out the options. Sorry. It's okay. Well, my name is Ruth. Sorry, I can't have my video on right now, but yeah, I'm a part of the hotline team with detention resistance. I've been organizing with them since November 2019, and we give humanitarian support to folks in detention at Otay Mesa Detention Center. The hotline right now has been where I've been more involved, just taking calls like during the weekday of compas speaking out against the abuses, the inhumane detention, and everyone who is criminalized by the state as well. So sorry, if y'all have any questions, please let me know. That's a little bit of what we do, but we have other committees that also organize with folks in detention.
Yeah, Ruth, if you don't mind telling us about the other committees, I think our audience would love to hear that and how else they can get involved with detention resistance.
Yes, so we just briefly, yeah, we have the hotline team, right? We also have our post release. That's another committee I've been part of, which helps directly folks who are released from detention. Oftentimes, these people are just left, like, dropped off in really late hours of the night in really dangerous areas where they don't know where they're going to go, what's going to be their next step. So that's where we support and go in, and oftentimes try to support directly as much as we can with, like, care packages, phones, all little things that we might not think they're really something that we might not realize are super needed. So we go and help in that way. Before COVID, we had people volunteer, like people from the community who would host folks to stay with them. Right now with COVID, we use hotels, places like that. That's a little bit about that. We also have other committees that are in charge of sharing, to our media and to everyone what is going on inside the facility. Any changes that happened, and just more than anything amplify the voices of the folks who are doing the organizing. They're leading their movement inside. So just being that a tool more than anything for their self-advocacy that is already happening inside. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And this is why the work that detention resistance does is so important, and why the donations you are making today are so important. And I've just been told we are at $840, and we're less than 40 minutes into this stream. That's amazing. But we're trying to make it to 3,000. So please, please, please keep the donations coming. 100% goes to the compas in Otay Mesa Detention Center. Thanks, Ito, and thanks, Ruth.
This call is now being recorded.
Mi nombre es Alejandro Mesa. Yo estoy aquí en Detention Center de CCA en San Diego y aquí la verdad no nos ayudan bien. El médico no nos ayudan, nos dicen que todo va a estar bien, pero en realidad no saben los problemas que tenemos. Yo entré bien caminando derecho y sano y ya llevo aquí casi el año y me lastimé, yo creo que jugando básquetbol y 4 meses duró para que me viera el médico bien y me sacaran rayos X, pero la primera vez que me sacaron rayos X aquí en la facilidad me dijeron que no lo sabían leer los rayos X, se me mandaron para el médico afuera, a un hospital y
Thank you, Noe, for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Good luck in them.
Oh no. I'm just seeing that they couldn't actually hear Noe on the stream. But he just very beautifully spoke and told us about his story. He had a work permit to work in the United States and worked here legally for 10 years, but has been in the Otay Mesa Detention Center for the last 10 months, 10 and a half months. And he really just thanked us for this work that is being done. I don't think we need to be thanked, but we're just here to amplify their voices, and I'm really glad that he was able to join us and use his own voice because he's the one who has a story to tell.
And I believe that these examples illustrate why we need to, one, abolish ICE, which many people don't know, has only been around since 2004. We did Borders and Custom Patrol well before that organization was established. And we need to abolish these horrific concentration camps that we've set up at the border. So I hope that y'all on the stream will join us in future actions fighting these conflicts. And thanks again to Ruth Mendez and to Noe and to everybody that's contributed their stories, their poetry, their art, their life, so that we can connect with them. Thank you.
Another fun fact about Otay Mesa Detention Center that we haven't mentioned is that it is owned by a company called Core Civic that is publicly traded.
And they make quite a lot of profit off of shipping these compas in between centers, and from making them buy basic sanitary products such as soap, menstrual products. These phone calls have to be paid for. So it's you know, I think an egregious example of what the prison industrial complex looks like in the United States and how it treats migrants.
Yeah, they have also made more money during COVID than they normally do. So these compas, they need our solidarity.
And if you go on the Core Civic website, you'll find it's full of lies. They do quite a lot of propaganda to attempt to sanitize themselves. They make a point about, you know, there's no child separation at these camps. Living conditions are completely sanitary. And of course, we know from journalists and whistleblowers and our comrades inside the center itself, these are not true. So, you know, you can't trust the prison industrial complex to be held accountable, unfortunately.
So again, muchas gracias to our comrades at Detention Resistance and the compas in Otay Mesa. If you want to learn more about the work that Detention Resistance is doing, on Wednesday, September 30th, they will be taking part in a political education workshop entitled Another World is Possible, hosted by Free Them All San Diego, along with We All We Got, a mutual aid organization, and the Center for Interdisciplinary Environmental Justice, known as SIEGE. And a link for this should be dropped in our chat right now.
Right. And up next, we have a video from the Environmental Health Coalition. The Environmental Health Coalition, or EHC, has been a dedicated member of our community since 1980, fighting for environmental and social justice. They believe justice is accomplished by empowering communities acting together to make social change. They organize and advocate to protect public health and the environment threatened by toxic pollution. EHC supports broad efforts that create a just society and foster a healthy and sustainable way of life. So next up, we have an EHC video.
habla que nosotros tenemos el mismo derecho que en otros lugares de respirar un aire libre de contaminación, donde podemos vivir libre de donde no haya cantinas, donde no haya talleres que están contaminando. Y creo que es porque somos de bajos ingresos, pero aunque seamos de bajos ingresos tenemos el mismo derecho de respirar un aire libre de contaminación y libre de ruido.
So I was affected by the air pollution here in Barrio Logan. I was diagnosed with asthma in 6th grade, and it affected me because I wasn't able to fully participate in PE, and because I was in 6th grade, a lot of societal pressures affected me, and it just mattered more what people thought. So I felt a little weird that I couldn't participate in certain activities.
I think that one of the most severe environmental challenges that our community faces is air quality. And that's because we are exposed to many different sources of pollution. And we have, unfortunately, right next to our homes, businesses which pollute our communities. So that results in a lot of asthma and other kind of respiratory illnesses. And that's become a very important issue for us.
Los problemas que hay aquí sería la contaminación, que es lo más evidente, puesto que está todo rodeado de basura, agua contaminada, infestado de personas contaminando. En la parte verde de la Río de la Mar, lo poco que queda, igual contaminado, lleno de llantas, basura.
Empezamos primero con encuestas de salud. De ahí nos dimos a la tarea de que cuál era el problema, y la problemática era lo que era la empresa Metales y Derivados, que era la que estaba contaminando y dañando a la comunidad. Estuve embarazada y a partir de la contaminación tan fuerte que estaba, me empecé a sentir mal y me llevaron al hospital. Resultó que no nada más era yo, sino que había mucha gente de aquí de la misma comunidad que traían amenazas de aborto por el alto nivel de contaminación que había, y pues eso me afectó y perdí lamentablemente a mi bebé.
Having been involved in the movement for all this time, there's still anger that can be brought up when you see the situation that you're in daily. However, the anger, if you let it, it can paralyze you. So you've got to move your anger onto a passion to move forward and do something about it.
Cái đó là cái ấp ủ và cưu mang chính tôi, và khi chúng tôi tham gia với EC, cái điều mà chúng tôi nhìn thấy cái khởi tượng tương lai đó là những giới trẻ mà hiện tại chúng tôi đang làm là làm những cái điều mà ở dưới những con người với nhau, và cái hướng tới chúng tôi sẽ tiếp tục nói và những cái điều mà chia sẻ cho những người lớn, và ngay cả những cái điều mà chúng tôi cần muốn nói và việc chúng tôi cần muốn làm đó là cộng đồng cho được ảnh hưởng.
En el medio ambiente no hay fronteras, ¿no? Que todos somos una misma nación, un nuevo lugar, y HC nos lo ha demostrado, que está con nosotros, ahora sí que en las buenas y en las malas. ¿Por qué? Porque estamos luchando por la misma causa, lo que es el medio ambiente.
Pues estar en un grupo como el colectivo Chilpancingo, el grupo de jóvenes, me causa una gran emoción de satisfacción, de saber que no solo yo, sino hay más en este grupo que están tomando acción para poder mantener la comunidad.
The Environmental Health Coalition has made some incredible changes in our community, empowering our residents so that they know that they have a voice, first of all, that their voice can be heard, and then there's a way to make their voice even stronger.
Sí, estoy dispuesto a dedicar el tiempo que sea posible, los años que sean necesarios para poder parar esto, retrocederlo, poder regresar a donde estábamos antes. Para mí estos 40 años de trabajo que llevan han hecho mucho. He visto el trabajo que hacen, saben bien lo que están haciendo. Por mí formaría otros 40 años de trabajo.
Thank you so much to our comrades in Environmental Health Coalition for all the work they do. We now have another compa on the line from Otay Mesa Detention Center.
And I'm a detainee at Otay Mesa in San Diego. I come from prison. I did 12 years in prison. I've been in Otay Mesa detained for the past 6 years. I feel like it's inhumane for somebody who has done his prison time and to come in a detention center to do more time. I don't feel like it's the right thing for me to be here and not having a chance to find my case from the streets. It's just, I really don't even know what to say. I'm just right here just waiting and fighting my case. I've been in the BIA twice. I'm in the 9th Circuit. I'm going back and forth. So it's a big problem that's going on right now where people are not being released. They're just being detained for no reason. I mean, I'm not a danger to nobody. I ain't never been a danger to anybody. I did my time, and I feel like that I should get the time. I should get the chance to find my case in the streets. I just want to say, thank you to everybody who's out there just helping people out and the issues that's going on right now. So it's just, I really don't know what to say.
Thank you, Hermantes, for talking with us. Can you tell us how you ended up in the detention center? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. One more time for the recording. What is your name?
My name is Jorge Montes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming to tell your story, Jorge. It's really powerful to hear.
Hello? We've got another compa, I think? Please introduce yourself for the stream.
Felici, Foketi Fanua. I'm on record right now?
Yes, you are live.
Okay. My name is Felici Foketi Fanua. I'm from the island of Tonga. I've been in prison for 15 years, 4 months, and a couple of days. And I got early release from prison in 2018. And ICE picked me up from prison. Now I've been in detention center for 22 months now, fighting my case. I have a green card. I have 32 kids. They are all American citizens. And 50 grandkids, they are all American citizens. My families are all citizens and green cards. My mom, my sisters are over here. My brothers in America. And now I feel like I'm in double jeopardy. I served my time already, and I got released from good behavior from a lot of different counsel in prison. And now we over here, they treat us worse than prison. The way we live over here is just like how the people live in the death row in San Quentin. I've been in San Quentin. Because we don't have outside yard to go and walk around outside, play soccer outside. We only have a little patio over here for us. That's our yard over here. We just always see the wall around us and up to the sky. That's all we see. They treat us way worse over here than they search us every single day in here. In prison, we only search like once a month. Sometimes 6 6 months. They do search. Over here, they search us every day. While you're sleeping, they kick you out to come and search yourself. It's way worse over here than prison. And the food over here is way worse than prison food. Food in prison is way better than the food over here. And the COVID-19, we don't know what's going to happen for the next round of COVID-19 comes, but we need to be outside. We don't want to get died here. We need to be outside with our families. I'm asking you people, please help us so we can be out there with our family, so we can be out there and fight our case from the street. Thank you very much for your guys' time, for your help. I appreciate for everything you guys do for us. Thank you.
So much, Mama.
That's it.
Yeah. And one more time for the stream. Can you tell us your name?
Yeah.
All right. That was that.
Well, those were a couple more stories from inside the detention center, and apologies, I got a little emotional during that. But those are really powerful stories, and this is why what we're doing is so important. They're facing complete inhumane conditions in there.
But great news is we've hit $1,000 out of our $3,000 goal. Thank you so much to everybody who donated. We are doing a killer job on the fundraising front. And these funds will go to help our comrades in this detention center who are subject to, you can see these very horrid conditions that they've been subject to.
Wow. And $1,000 is great, but that also means we've still got 2/3 of the way to go. So please, please keep the funds coming. So next, I think we'll move on to our week 3 graphics.
Right. Let's go on to the week 3 graphics, and then we can, we've got our comrades from We Stand United talk about what they do. Let's see. Where's, hold on, sorry, get this set up. Yanni, take it away.
All right, so week 3 of our education series is about how Logan Heights came to be the vibrant Chicanx neighborhood that it is today, and the beautiful history of resistance that they have as a result. So we can't talk about any land in San Diego without first mentioning the Kumeyaay. The Kumeyaay Nation can trace their lineage back 12,000 years, as we mentioned earlier. So this is the region that's known as San Diego County, as far north as Ensenada, 60 miles south of the US-Mexico border, and all the way out to the Colorado River, so the California-Arizona border. The Kumeyaay were tied close, very close to their lands, and were said to be the best environmental managers in North America. They practiced horticulture and complex land and water management systems, which rotated on a seasonal basis. However, their livelihood changed when colonial settlers made contact with the Kumeyaay. Spanish settlers launched efforts to take over their ancestral lands, govern them, and convert them through missions. By 1822, the Spanish had taken over all of the Kumeyaay coastal lands through military force. Between 1836 and 1842, the Kumeyaay launched a series of attacks to reclaim their coastal lands. After the Mexican-American War, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed in 1848, which defined the US-Mexico border. This effectively split the Kumeyaay Nation into 2 geographies. The northern Kumeyaay resided in the US territory, while the southern Kumeyaay resided in the Mexican territory. The Kumeyaay did not fare better as the US government supported the genocide of indigenous natives. militias were sanctioned and paid by the local, state, and federal governments to exterminate the indigenous natives. Those who were not killed were forced to relocate, were kidnapped, and or sold into slavery. Although Mexico was guilty of exploiting indigenous natives as well, they too were horrified by how the US government had treated the indigenous. During the 1900s, the Mission Indian Federation was founded in Southern California as a grassroots political organization to advocate for tribal sovereignty and fought against discriminatory policies. In the present day, San Diego County resides in the Kumeyaay Nation with 12 federally recognized bands. They still face colonial aggression and continue to resist these advances to protect their sovereignty and traditions. Kumeyaay members are currently protesting Trump's border wall, not only does it disturb ancient Kumeyaay burial sites, but it also prevents access to Kumeyaay cultural sites. It's about the sanctity of our graveyards. No one would want someone to go through their graveyards and start blasting. No other people. Why is it okay for them to blast ours? Our ancestors. There's a quote from Bobby Wallace, a member of the Barona Band of Mission Indians. As we continue to bear more intense climate disasters, we need to honor Indigenous sovereignty and follow their knowledge and leadership in addressing the ecological crisis of our time. You can follow at Kumeyaay Defense Against the Wall on Instagram to get more involved.
We have, as far as the history of Barrio Logan, from the 1800s to the early 1900s. Now, San Diego is the site of the first permanent Spanish settlement in California. The military, religious, and civil components of pre-1848 California society were embodied in the thinly populated presidios, missions, pueblos, and ranchos. Until they were secularized in the 1830s, the 21 Spanish missions of California, with their thousands of more or less captive native converts, controlled the most and best land, about 1 million acres per mission. They had large numbers of workers, grew the most crops, and had the most sheep, cattle, and horses. After secularization, most of the mission lands were divided up into new ranchos and granted to Mexican citizens, including many Californians and other residents in California. The Spanish colonial and later Mexican national governments encouraged settlers from the northern and western provinces of Mexico, as well as people from other parts of Latin America, most notably Peru and Chile, to settle in California, which displaced the indigenous tribes. They encouraged new settlers to become Spanish and or Mexican citizens, including suggested conversion to the Roman Catholic Church. Not only was frontier violence sanctioned by the state, it was largely funded by the federal government. By 1863, the federal government had given the state of California more than $1 million to reimburse militia expenditures for expeditions to find and kill California Indian people. In addition, state legislatures passed laws that stripped people indigenous to California of their power to protect themselves, their land, their culture, and their livelihoods. One of the first laws passed by the California legislature in 1850 set up a form of legalized slavery. Native adults could be bought at public auction, and native children could be exploited under the guise of apprenticeship. The law fractured families and tribal communities while furthering land dispossession. Hopes of a railroad line connecting San Diego to points east rose and fell. With these hopes of land speculation, it was followed by financial crashes. Now, our region developed first in what is now downtown San Diego, and by the late 1880s, the adjacent communities of Logan Heights, which then included Barrio Logan, and Sherman Heights got subdivided. Public transportation to these neighborhoods and out to City Heights allowed the population to grow. Logan Heights and Sherman Heights were upper-class neighborhoods. City Heights was a working-class neighborhood. National City, San Diego County's second oldest city, developed around the same time, again driven by the hopes of a railroad. It developed as an agricultural and industrial hub, with a population spanning the economic and ethnic spectrums. Improved roads and the introduction of the automobile allowed many of the wealthier residents to move to new suburbs, and Logan Heights and Sherman Heights became home to successive waves of immigrants and minorities who were excluded from living in these new neighborhoods by racial, ethnic, and religious discrimination. The Irish, Jews, Japanese, Chinese, African Americans, and Latinos. For decades, the Chicanx community in Logan Heights had thrived as a small, self-reliant neighborhood. Mexicanos had always been part of the community. Starting between the years of 1910 and 1920, the area began its transformation into a predominantly Mexican-American community as immigrants fled north from revolution and a poor Mexican economy. Since the 1930s, many more moved there as laborers, cannery workers, welders, pipe fitters, longshoremen, etc. For decades, community residents had asked city officials to build a park in the barrio. In the early 1900s, the total indigenous population in California dropped to about 16,500 people, and 11,800 of those are considered landless. U.S. Supreme Court ruling backs the eviction of the Cupa people from their ancestral homeland at Warner Springs, leading to a forced removal of these indigenous people 2 years later. The agricultural economy of the Luiseno people of the La Jolla and Rincon reservations is destroyed when the city of Escondido builds a new dam on the San Luis Rey River, diverting all the water from reservation land. The agricultural economy of the Kumeyaay people living on ancestral lands on the Captain Grande Reservation already diminished by a city diversion of the San Diego River to Lake Cuyamaca. This never recovers after residents are forced off their lands to make way for the city of San Diego's El Capitan Dam and its reservoir.
And that brings us to World War II. World War II made a large impact on the city of San Diego. The city had already been a military town since World War I, but World War II brought a historic amount of wartime manufacturing and employment to the city. At this time, the Navy also expanded their base across the bay from North Island in Coronado into Barrio Logan and took their waterfront, making it the only city that was denied access to their own waterfront, where they had previously hung out and had a bayfront. It's now been completely polluted by that. More than 2.5 million persons of Mexican descent lived in the southwestern part of the United States when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Of that number, more than half were native-born U.S. citizens, and probably 1/3, or just fewer than 1 million, were men of draft age. While there are no reliable statistics on this, impressionistic accounts indicate that large numbers of Mexican Americans either volunteered or were drafted into the armed services during World War II. And it's estimated that about 500,000 Mexican American men joined the armed services during the war. As has been noted by many historians, collectively as a group, the Chicanx earned more Congressional Medals of Honor, the nation's highest award for bravery and valor, than any other. 17 to be exact. After World War II, National City became home to a large Filipino population. City Heights was the first home to many Southeast Asian refugees following the Vietnam War, and home to many other more recent refugees following the civil strife in their homelands.
Next in the history of Barrio Logan, my bad. Next in the history of Barrio Logan, we have the construction, of the I-5 freeway and the Coronado Bridge. Now, coming out of World War II and throughout the 1950s, Barrio Logan had already been severely encroached upon by a naval base and industrial projects. Each access had been eliminated in some areas, and heavily polluted industries had been zoned adjacent to residential communities. Housing, environmental, and health issues these industries caused would only be exacerbated by two large projects in the 1960s. The construction of the I-5 freeway, as well as the Coronado Bridge. The I-5 freeway bisected Barrio Logan, separating what is now Logan Heights on the east side of the freeway. In addition to displacing people whose homes were in the direct path of the freeway, this brought more diesel trucks, as well as the air and noise pollution that came with them, throughout the residential neighborhood. In 1966, Governor Gerald Brown father to the recent California Governor Jerry Brown, made it a priority to get approval for a trans-San Diego Bay bridge crossing to Coronado. He was close friends with the owner of a failing Hotel de Coronado company, and a bridge allowing more access could save that company. Despite objections from local communities, construction of the bridge began in 1967, again bisecting Barrio Logan and displacing 1,500 families. Under the shadow of concrete monoliths and surrounded by polluting industries, Barrio Logan would see the exodus of 15,000 people over just a few decades.
And that brings us to the beautiful history of reclamation of land. So with the desecration of the community through the military takeover of the waterfront, industrial rezoning, and the construction of the I-5 and Coronado Bridge, as meager compensation, the community demanded and had been promised a park so they would have a place for all to gather. The city council had agreed and already obtained a designated land site from the state in November 1969. However, on April 22nd, 1970, bulldozers had been moved into the site to construct a parking lot for a highway patrol station instead. Word quickly spread through the community, and people flocked to the park in protest. They formed human chains around the bulldozers and commandeered them to flatten the land, and brought picks and shovels to plant flowers and cactus to build the park for themselves. The following day, the Chicano Park Steering Committee, CPSC, was formed to direct the community effort to build the park and confront state and city authorities. The protest lasted a total of 12 days until the city and community reached an agreement, but the formation of Chicano Park was not signed into law until 1971, and that was thanks to the continued pressure by CPSC. The murals the park is famous for began being painted 2 years later by local artists Salvador Torres, Guillermo Aranda, my uncle, Yolanda Lopez, Victor Ochoa, and many, many more over the years. And they serve as a representation of Chicanx history and culture. Chicano Park was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2013 due to its association with the Chicano movement, and in 2016 was designated as a National Historic Landmark. We mentioned earlier Chicano Park Samba by Chunky and Los Alacranes, but if you want a whole musical history of the park, I highly recommend you go listen to that song. And for a more complete history, you can also visit the Chicano Park Steering Committee website. The link is being dropped in the chat.
All right. Update on our fundraising goal. Guys, we've hit $1,450. We are almost halfway to our goal. We are just over halfway through our stream. Just a myriad of thanks to everybody donating today. It means the world, and it really makes my heart very warm. So I'm getting word from our producers that we may have some time to kill before our next guests arrive. We're waiting for Nacho and Vanessa from East End United San Diego. Let's see. Now let me check in with our producers. Producers, are we not going to have them on for at least another 20 minutes? Do we know where they are? Producers. Wow.
The beauty of live streaming.
Yep. Fantastic, trying to get everybody in. Okay. Well, in that case, let's, we got another week of Chicanx culture. Wait. Share the other,
another video to share?
We have another video from, sorry, internal communications about what the show. But yeah, right. Let's go ahead and move on.
I also believe we might have more recordings from the compas in the center potentially.
Mm-hmm. Technical crew, do we have more testimonies and stories from our comrades and the Mesa?
I think that's the most powerful thing we can do with our time is to amplify the voices of people in the center, and that'll tell you more than anything why this money is so important and why we stand in solidarity with our compas in the center.
Yeah, it's been very powerful to hear the stories of the people in there. There's more I can do, but
Yeah.
in the absence of any other material, we can go through.
Well, I will say another thing that I recently learned and really affected me, and just goes to show you how inhumane these people are being treated, is that they aren't even referred to as their names in ICE concentration camps, if I'm being honest. They're referred to as A, the letter A, and then a number. And the letter A stands for alien.
Which is,
This call is now being recorded.
Yeah, I mean, it's a.
You can't do anything more dehumanizing than that, than strip someone of something as simple as their name.
Right, a letter and number. And this is a continuity that we've seen with other concentration camps in the Holocaust in World War II.
So I've got a couple more recordings set up. If you're ready, I will start playing through them.
I think we're ready.
We'd love to hear them, Ito.
Let's see. Let's do it this way. This one is from Fanua.
This call is now being recorded.
Yes, my name is Pelisi Fonua. I'm at Old Time Mesa Detention Center. I got picked up by ICE on 2018 from prison when I get released. I served my time already in prison, and now I'm over here in Old Time Mesa. Now, to me, how I feel is kind of double jeopardy. I served my time already, and I have a green card, and I have a lot of kids, 32 kids who is a citizen, and 50 grandkids is all citizen. And to me, it's not, it's not right how they can hold me up over here. I should be out on the street and do my case from the street, because I already served my time. And I came to America legal, by visa, and I've got a green card. Now it seems like if something is wrong with the American system over here, because I have a legal permanent resident. If I do have if I had to have a citizen, I've been walking around out there with those people been released from prison. They are citizens. They are murdered, raped from prison, worse than my case. But on the COVID-19 over here, we are scared about the COVID-19, what's going on in here. It's not clean over here. It's kind of dirty over here, and all the things is. We don't want to, die over here and our families out there. But I'm asking for the people out there, please, I need help. I need to be out there with my family. I need to get released. Because, see, the excuse that I did said because of our criminal record. I get released from prison I go through like more than 10 counselors. And they said they released me, early release because of my good behavior. I'm doing good in prison. I'm doing everything good. How the hell can they tell me I'm dangerous for the community? But I'm doing good in prison, so they give me early release. That don't make understand to me. I don't understand what is going on in this system. But I ask for people, please help. I need help.
again, that was a message from Fanua. Next, I have a message from another message from
This call is now being recorded.
Anonymous.
Okay. Hola, soy Anónimo. Estoy hablando aquí del centro de detención de ICE y quiero decir que, hablar en general por todos los que están aquí, que por estas condiciones en las que nos tienen aquí no se me hacen buenas, nos entierran en nuestras celdas, la comida no está buena, no es buena, la medicina no dan las horas que deben de ser, o sea, pues, es todo lo que tengo que decirles, pero estoy hablando en general por todos, no es conmigo, porque como yo veo cómo nos tratan y cómo nos tratan aquí a la gente, y es todo lo que tengo que decir, y ya, esto es listo.
All right. Any commentary of any things you want to add from these two stories before I move on?
I can roughly try and translate a bit of that. He was basically talking about how awful the conditions are in there, and how awfully they're treated by the ICE officers, and how terrible the food is. Yeah, he said he didn't have too much to say, but he thanked us for helping.
Next up, I've got a message from Jose.
This call is now being recorded.
Okay, my name is Jose. I'm from El Salvador. I've been in this country for over 20 years, and I've been in detention the last 4 years, suffering, like being in detention with all the people right here suffering a lot. All the people right here, including myself, suffering from medical conditions that we don't get them health care necessary or the health care that we need. Lately, they did a change on medical care right here in Monte Mesa. From health police department, they changed it to Core Civic. Core Civic now have the medical care for us, but we're not getting the health services that we need. In the last 4 years that I'm being in detention, 2 years ago I get an injury when I was transported from ICE to another detention. When I was a handcuff, I was transporting. I suffered injury in my shoulder. 2 years passed already, and not having care. So, to all the people outside, the community, if they can hear us, they can know voice, because we're the only one that we suffer right here. We suffer a lot from medical, from people like racist people right here in detention, from all the stuff that. Okay, you can stop.
All right. I've got one more from Alvaro.
This call is now being recorded.
My name is Alvaro Hernandez, and I'm at the Alta Mesa Detention Center. I have been in the United States since 1983, and I am a legal permanent resident. I'm here to talk about the conditions at this detention center, Alta Mesa, because this is not about the crime I committed. It's about the public health crisis. When I got here, they put me in the hole, possibly with COVID-19 positive inmates. They were waking me up at 2:30 in the morning on a daily basis. I was hardly getting any sleep for 15 days. COs, detention officers, were doing rounds every 15 minutes, making sure everyone's alive, and waking everybody up and not letting anyone get any proper sleep. I'm saying all this just to see if we can do something about this, because this is inhumane, this is torture, and that's not right. Something needs to get done now. I'm willing now to sign my voluntary deportation because they really did torture me, and I do not want to be in the United States anymore because of the facts that are going on at Mesa Detention Center. Something needs to be done. Someone needs to step up and get this fixed ASAP. Thank you. Today.
That's a couple of recordings for now. Commentary?
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff, and it goes to show why this is so important. I keep saying it, but it is. To more concretely tell you how your money is helping, $400 supports a recently released migrant with hotel, food, and toiletries for 3 days until they can get to their sponsor home.
$100 will help an asylum seeker pay for phone calls to lawyers, family, and Otay Mesa detention resistance organizers.
$50 supplies a detained migrant with essential hygiene items such as soap and toilet paper via their commissary fund.
And then $15.
They have to pay for things like soap and toilet paper.
Right. And then $15 will help a recently released detainee avoid deportation by funding Lyft rides to and from court hearings and administrative offices. So, with that said, we've gotten $1,500 out of our $3,000 goal. So, that's $15 for Lyft rides to and from court hearings. We can fund 150 Lyft rides when they're released and need to get around. The point simply being that the funds that we're raising are directly helping individuals who have been impacted by state violence. And in that regard, I think it's incredibly important. And I think we see very common themes amongst the testimonies from people inside the center. The response to coronavirus has been incredibly negligent. They're not given basic sanitary supplies. The food is unedible, etc.
And I think it also goes to show you that every dollar counts. No matter what you're able to give today, it's going to make a world of difference to someone in Otay Mesa Detention Center.
And also for information, the detention center also has this amazing pen pal program where they can link up volunteers with compas. They share their stories about what they love to do. For example, there's a trans comrade who used to be a chef and misses cooking so much. The volunteer pen pal system, will make the food and the detainee will make food and they'll send back pictures. So, I'm going to sign up for that after this live stream personally.
Okay, well, as we're waiting for We Stand United to join us, maybe we should take this time and go over our week 4 graphics.
Yes, that's a great idea.
But please keep the funds coming. It's going to an amazing place.
Wait, no.
Oh,
We have Nacho.
actually, We Stand United is here, actually. Okay, so We Stand United. Well, we have Nacho from We Stand United, and I believe Vanessa as well. But We Stand United SD is a Black and Brown organization demonstrating the power of unity and community. You can follow them on Instagram at We Stand United SD. Nacho, are you ready?
Yes.
Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, so my name is Nacho. Pronouns are him and his. I'm here representing We Stand United. And yeah, just wanted to talk about, we do a lot of groundwork in San Diego. We fighting for the abolition of everything that's going on in our government system. And I think we have to unite forces, whatever that may seem. We had an altercation the other night in downtown where we were targeted by police. So this fight isn't just inside the detention facilities; it's also outside. So I just wanted to show my support. The organization is here in support, and we want to work with other organizations to just have a bigger impact, because if we're each doing our own thing, trying to do better for the community, I think it'll be more impactful if we work as a collective and use everybody's individual skills to really try to make a change, the change that we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. There is power in numbers. And that's what we need to do. We all need to organize and collectively work together for liberation.
100%.
Nacho, would you mind speaking to the incident that happened earlier this week with some organizers at We Stand United, or is that sensitive information?
Yeah, so are you talking about the Friday incident?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
And maybe what we had Saturday, if that's also good.
Sorry?
Maybe if you could talk a bit about what we had planned for Saturday as well.
Yeah. So Saturday we had an abolish ICE action that we had weeks of planning. We were planning to, just make a solid statement, because what happened to Breonna Taylor in this case was really unfortunate. But also what's happening in these concentration camps with the hysterectomies is inhumane, and we wanted to bring attention to it. So we had an action plan for Saturday, but one of our comrades was arrested on our Friday action for Breonna Taylor. So we decided to postpone it. But our organization is a Black and Brown led, and we want to bring unity between Black and Brown. So we were really devastated in postponing, but we didn't want to have this action knowing that one of ours was we didn't know his status. So we're hoping and doing it next week, but again, we just want to bring light to the inhumane acts that are being done on our people in these concentration camps.
Okay, thank you very much. Now our comrades who were arrested this past week, they've been I'm sorry, I forget, but it was five of them were arrested, right? And then 3 were freed. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so they were all free. 3 were released with no charges, and 2 were charged with resisting arrest and robbery. So the whole thing sparked with this white man making allegations to the police while we were concluding our protest. And there's video evidence of him going to the police and describing and just allegating to the police that he was robbed. And then we were followed by and assaulted. He claimed this to police officers, and then we started mobilizing, and then we got cornered by multiple cops on their bikes. Me personally, it was a very scary moment for me personally, just because there was possibly 18 of us max. It was the concluding of the protest, so there was only 18 people, and there was about 80 to 90 cops, and they called for backups. So it was ridiculous. They assaulted us. They charged with their bikes. They targeted this person that they claimed to listen to the white man, the agitator, and yeah, they couldn't. The person that they targeted, they ended up letting him go because they couldn't correlate anything, But it's just another proof that the system is meant to oppress us, Because if it was anybody else, um, I don't think they would have listened to him. If it was so.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually watched the videos that you posted, and
yeah.
They never even asked the white man to show evidence. He
Exactly.
just claimed these things, and they took his word.
And that's my, yeah, I was really lost of words when I saw that video. Like, it was just, and how they reacted, and again, assaulted us. They pepper sprayed a legal observer, the only black legal observer here in San Diego. She was pepper sprayed. She got in the midst of it. So, yeah, everything was very, very unfortunate.
I mean, it speaks to some of the dangers that organizers and protesters are starting to face recently. It reminds me of an incident a few weeks ago in Denver, where organizers from the Party of Socialism and Liberation were also directly targeted by the Denver police force, and arrested in their homes on fraudulent charges of kidnapping, and I forget what else. They come out with a statement describing the situation, and it just seems as though these organizers, the only crime that they had committed was activist organizing. This is also in line with recent reports that federal agents have been tapping the phones of movement leaders, as well as the Trump administration declaring nebulous Antifa as a terrorist organization, and declaring certain cities across the country as anarchist jurisdictions. So the police state is starting to crack down on social justice organizers. It's getting real out there, folks.
And what scares me, honestly, is that I think history repeats itself, and this has been seen before. Like the agenda that whatever party it is, they push that there's going to be a war on blank. 50 years ago, it was a war on drugs, war on crime. So, it's nerve-wracking that they're, like you said, cracking down on people that are trying to see change in their community, because it's something that it's affecting us directly, and we're tired of it. And yeah, it's unfortunate that they're arresting us, they're arresting our people, when in reality we just want to see laws that protect us, and arresting the killer cops at the end of the day.
Right. I mean, you mentioned history repeating itself, and I think that very much is the case. If I'm not mistaken, some of my historical knowledge is a little fuzzy here, but the Black Panther organization had infiltrants from the CIA to try to discredit the organization. Martin Luther King Jr. had been sent letters from the FBI, tried to encourage him to kill himself. I believe a court case sometime in the 70s or 80s had found that he was assassinated by the CIA. The Nixon administration had started the war on drugs to target anti-war protesters and racial minorities. So there's a lot of continuity here. There's a lot
also, sorry, we're talking about Chicanx history and culture, so we also have to mention that the Brown Berets were also infiltrated by FBI and police agitators.
100%.
There's
yeah. Also, just the brainwashing of when you look at the educational system and how, like you said, none of this history is taught in schools. They don't want us to know the true history and like the gentrification and the killing of our people, because they know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing everything they can to keep us oppressed and without this knowledge. So I'm thankful for these spaces. I'm thankful for everybody that is, taking it upon themselves to learn and really exposing this country that was built off of hate, built off of racism, and we're paying the consequences of our ancestors. But yeah, it's yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you started We Stand United so that there's organizations out there that are fighting these systems that work against us.
And I think to the public, unfortunately, graphic and horrific things have to be, they have to happen. For example, George Floyd, something that graphic had to happen for people to realize that this is actually happening. And it's unfortunate that so many other people that are not on video are also seeking justice. There's so many other George Floyds, there's so many other Breonna Taylors that unfortunately don't have the attention of the media and are swept under the rug.
Of course. Now, is there anything that viewers at home here at Sunrise can do to further support We Stand United and continue our efforts of solidarity?
Yeah, we'll keep you guys in the loop. We'll keep you on the loop as to when we wanted to postpone this Abolish ICE action. As of right now, our comrades are free. Our We Stand United member was not charged with anything, so we're not dealing with anything legally. We are trying to connect the people that were charged with pro bono lawyers. So if y'all know any legal representatives, y'all can shoot them our way. But as of right now, we just as an individual and like as a representative of We Stand United, I feel like we were really looking forward to having this action for our brown people. So we just we'll keep you on the loop. Maybe next week, maybe the week after that. We just don't want to rush it. We still want to have a powerful demonstration and a space for our people to really center themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to do what's safest for everyone. But I'm really glad that everyone from We Stand United is safe as of now.
Yeah.
But really looking forward to that protest when it does happen. And we'll be out there in numbers.
Yeah, appreciate y'all. Yeah, STPD is just, it's getting worse and worse every day. Again, going back to Friday, the chief, I barely found this out that he worked with, he has military background, so his tactics are very militarized. So I just saw a post about, are you guys familiar with Leo Ibarra?
Yeah.
And there was recently a post that the officer that killed him went to
the memorial site for Leo?
Yeah, the memorial site, and just made an awful post.
Right. Posting
out to family members of Leo And We Stand United wants to do however she wants to move forward with this, because it's infuriating that these people are so ruthless and so cold-hearted, to do something like that. So I just want to extend my help in anything she wants to do, because it's infuriating, honestly.
I agree. All right, great. I was just curious personally, is there anything else outside of direct actions or demonstrations that We Stand United gets up to? Would you like to highlight any organizations that you're partnered with, or any activities you have planned in the future other than the Abolish ICE protest?
Yeah, so we recently had a seminar by the National Latino Research Center, and they were able to do a Know Your Rights seminar for us. So that was very insightful. We were able to learn about our constitutional rights, regardless of our document status here in the States. So that was very informative, and we plan on having what we learned and took from that, and having like a virtual, we just want to give back what we learned, in a sense. So not really a seminar, but just like talking points, because it's something that I think everybody should know, especially with ICE having so much power. This is something that our people have to know, or even allies, So yeah, we're putting this forward, and that's in mind. We do also do decompression spaces. We're gonna have a nocturnal yoga event this next Saturday, the 3rd, at Pepper Grove Park. One of our members is leading this event. But yeah, that's what we have so far. We have worked with PSL before. I'm blanking on the names, but we're starting to establish ourselves.
Yeah, we've definitely seen you around, and we hope this is also the start of a beautiful, long-lasting partnership between Sunrise and We Stand United.
100%. Looking forward to what we can do moving forward.
All right. Nacho, is anything else you might like to conclude with? I suppose Vanessa's not going to join us.
Yeah, she's able to join on Wednesday. Yeah.
Well,
but no,
anything else?
United, we're good. Yeah, thankful for this opportunity, and like y'all said, looking forward to what we can plan in the future.
And thank you so much for joining us and also sharing platforms.
Yeah, of course. Y'all have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, should we do a check of our fundraiser?
Let's see. Fundraiser check. So
we're at $1,760.
Not bad. Not bad. Not bad.
It's amazing. There's so much that can be done with that, but we're still about $1,200 shy of our goal, and that'll do a whole lot more. So please, please, please stand in solidarity with the Compas and Otay Mesa Detention Center.
If anybody get in touch with Sarah Jacobs, I know she wants to donate to the cause. Sorry, that's a joke. Okay, well, let's see then. Do we want to cover the remaining Chiconics culture slides and then wrap up?
Sounds like a plan.
Like a plan. All right, fantastic.
So for our final week, we wanted to tie back in why it's so important to discuss racial justice anytime we mention environmental justice, because our BIPOC communities locally and elsewhere are always disproportionately affected by climate change.
Okay. So first off, zoning laws, redlining and exclusionary zoning. Now, in the 1800s and the early 1900s, many neighborhoods enacted racial covenants, which had banned BIPOC folk from white neighborhoods. These covenants were made illegal by the Supreme Court in the early 20th century. Now, following the illegalization of racial zones, economic zoning exploded in the early 1900s as a way to compensate for that. Now, from just 8 cities with zoning codes in 1916 to 1,246 cities by 1936. So within 20 years, you get like 100 times the number of cities with economic zoning laws. Now, zoning, which is the practice of dividing land where certain land uses are permitted or prohibited, became ubiquitous in the 20th century for a lot of reasons. Cities were getting a lot bigger and more chaotic. Heavy industry was spewing out pollutants, and tenant housing overcrowded working class people in squalid living conditions. Now, zoning was implemented to combat these issues, but it was also used to protect property values and thus to segregate cities by class. These practices were upheld by the Supreme Court in the Euclid versus Amber Reality case, which had argued that apartments and low-income housing would deprive children of the privilege of quiet and open spaces for play, enjoyed by those in more favored localities. Until, finally, the residential character of the neighborhood and its desirability as a place of detached residences are utterly destroyed. Now, under these circumstances, apartment houses, they come very near to being nuances, which was argued in this case. Now, economic segregation meant racial segregation because of the racial wealth gap. Now, during the economic and housing crisis of the 1930s, the New Deal era began. And with it, the federal government established the Federal Housing Administration, now, or the FHA. Now, the FHA increased housing opportunities by guaranteeing mortgages for new homeowners. However, aid was restricted to areas that were seen as the safest financial bets, which you can see where this is going, which in the FHA were homogenous and all-white communities. This was enforced through a process known as redlining. So the FHA drew maps of major metropolitan areas and color-coded neighborhoods to indicate to the banks which areas should receive the most federal support. The strongest support was given to all white communities enclosed by freeways, while communities of color were color-coded red and given no federal support. The practice of redlining has exacerbated racial and economic inequality in the US. While the Fair Housing Act of 1968 made the practice of redlining illegal, these geographic inequities are enforced and exacerbated today through exclusionary single-family zoning, which has a profound effect on the ability of BIPOC communities to generate wealth, get access to quality education, and to live in areas that are not heavily polluted from freeways and industry. Right, and I really appreciate the point about quality education. Most public education in the United States, K through 12, is funded by property taxes, right? So communities that have higher property values, they just get more funding for their schools, and those communities end up with better educational opportunities. Now, as the climate crisis causes cities to look for denser, more sustainable forms of living, many of these efforts are squandered by strict exclusionary zoning codes. This causes new development to occur in the few areas where dense housing is allowed, which is disproportionately in BIPOC communities. New development raises the cost of living in these neighborhoods and can displace entire communities in a process known as gentrification. As cities like San Diego work to adapt to climate change, we must do so in a way that fights actively against exclusionary zoning, segregation, gentrification, and displacement so as to ensure that BIPOC frontline communities are invested in and driving the solutions to address the climate crisis.
So what this looks like in San Diego, and really where it's happening is Barrio Logan. So Barrio Logan, as we've mentioned, is a majority Chicanx neighborhood in San Diego, south of the 94 freeway. Barrio Logan has among the highest asthma hospitalization rates in all of California due to the awful air quality. And this is due to the zoning laws that Nico was mentioning. The air quality in the city is the result of policies encouraging commercial industry plants next to residential homes, as well as the construction of the 5 freeway extension built in 1963. And these two things coupled together mean that there's a lot more trucks and cars going through the area, and the freeway is going right through the middle of the community. So you can only imagine the type of air they're having to breathe. Additionally, the Coronado Bridge was built in 1967, which brings even more cars to the area, because every morning and afternoon there are soldiers going in and out of North Island in Coronado. But this also displaced many families and homes as the land was cleared for construction. Environmental racism beyond just San Diego in California. Well, the people who stirred the soil of the earth, who labor to grow and harvest our food, and who we depend on every day so that we may eat, take the brunt of environmental racism and the climate crisis. Just this summer, farm workers in California toiled under the extremes of COVID-19. Pesticides such as chlorpyrifos, sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that right, extreme smoke from wildfires, and ever-increasing extreme heat. Despite facing some of the greatest exposure to climate issues, farm workers are some of the least protected people. In California alone, we see a large problem of state unenforcement, where about 79% of migrant workers are Latinx. It calls to a report on the racial disparities in the EPA's enforcement patterns published by the National Law Journal in 1992. This is even more troubling when considering that in the context of hazardous occupations, the death rate among agricultural workers is an estimated 20.9 per 100,000 workers, compared to an average of 3.9 per 100,000 workers in all industries in the year 1996. Clearly making agriculture one of the most hazardous occupations in all of the United States. Farm workers deserve better conditions, robust legal protections, higher wages, clean air, and a livable climate. It's humane. It's simple as that. You can follow at Farm Worker Justice, at the Farm Workers Project, at UFW Updates, and at Trabajos del Campo for more information.
Let's talk about lithium. Oops. Oh, wait. Talk about lithium, right? Now, lithium mining. You've probably got one in your phone and your laptop. Now, with the increasing popularity of electric vehicles, more and more lithium is required to manufacture their batteries. Investments in Argentina rose tenfold between 2015 and 2018 for mining. But now, where does this lithium come from? Who does it affect? And is this really the green solution, right? So the most significant reserves of lithium in the world are in a region known as the Lithium Triangle, an area that includes parts of Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. Many indigenous communities, which recognize these lands as ancestral, rely on groundwater reservoirs connected to lithium-rich basins. Some have been forced to move away due to water shortages and other direct effects of lithium extraction on local ecosystems. These communities have been fighting for free, prior, and informed consent for many years, but they have been repeatedly pushed aside by national and international courts and governments in favor of more lithium extraction. An injunction filed in 2010 against the Argentinian government over indigenous communities' right to consent is still being processed by the CIDH. That's 10 years this has been being litigated. So now, similar to how fossil fuel extractors operate in California and the US, corporations who profit from lithium extraction have funded studies which claim it does not affect the freshwater indigenous people in the area rely on, whereas independent research and indigenous communities have contradicted this claim. Now, at Sunrise, we frequently refer to a just transition for climate action in domestic terms, empowering working class people by providing them with good paying union jobs to build green infrastructure, and empowering frontline communities by providing them with agency over the spending and decisions that will create sustainability. Now, we must also consider a just transition in global terms. How do the choices made by the US impact communities around the world? How can we ensure that frontline communities and indigenous people in other countries have agency over their lands, their waters, and their lives? Reducing reliance on fossil fuels is not enough. Shifting solely towards electric vehicles attempts to reduce transportation emissions in the short term without addressing the real problem, a reliance on single occupancy vehicles. Mineral extraction is greenwashed by governments and corporations which profit from it, obscuring and justifying the ways it harms frontline and indigenous communities by claiming that it is necessary to supply green technologies. By relying too heavily on electric vehicles and lithium-ion battery storage, the climate movement risks selling out to the people it means to serve. We cannot allow ourselves to be conned by fake solutions that are neither sustainable nor equitable in the long term. While we in the US and in the global north have created the climate crisis, the global south will suffer disproportionately, not only from warming, but from also the ecological consequences of extraction-based solutions. The voices of the indigenous communities who bear the brunt of this are frequently left out from conversation and activism around climate change. Reducing short-term emissions by widely adapting electric vehicles would trade one oppressive system for another. We must instead hold indigenous and frontline voices at the forefront of our activism to ensure any transition is genuinely just, equitable, and harm-reducing.
And finally, I know we've mentioned the Environmental Health Coalition a few times already, but wanted to make sure we made space to properly highlight all the amazing work they do. So EHC has been a dedicated member of the community since 1980, fighting for environmental and social justice. They believe that justice is accomplished by empowered communities acting together to make social change. They organize and advocate to protect public health and the environment threatened by toxic pollution. EHC supports broad efforts that create a just society and fosters a healthy and sustainable quality of life. EHC works mainly with the largely Latinx communities of Barrio Logan, Sherman, and Logan Heights, and City Heights in the city of San Diego, and in National City with major emphasis on the West Side. These residents immigrated from Latin America, Asia, and Africa, and many have little formal education. Problems in these communities commonly occur in many low-income communities of color. Substandard housing, overcrowded schools, a lack of social services, low-paying jobs, polluting industries mixed with residential and commercial sites, industrial truck traffic, lack of parks and healthy food outlets, severe air pollution, and lead contamination in aging housing stock, and the list goes on. EHC implements its mission and goals through grassroots campaigns to confront the unjust consequences of toxic pollution, discriminatory land use, and unsustainable energy policies. Through leader development, organizing, and advocacy, EHC empowers residents to achieve public policies that improve the health of children, families, neighborhoods, and the natural environment of the San Diego-Tijuana region. Their strategies have led to the first ever achievements, including 1. The passage of one of the first community right-to-know laws in the entire nation. 2. The first state ban on lead-contaminated candies. 3. The first binational toxic site cleanup. And finally, 4. The first municipal general plan in California to include environmental justice goals. The dynamics of poverty, institutionalized racism, and unresponsive governmental policies intersect and increase the severity of these issues in our communities. The lack of power and resources are a challenge for engaging in public policy decision-making. EHC has repeatedly met that challenge by building community and organizational power. EHC is a founding member of the California Environmental Justice Alliance, also known as CEJA, a statewide coalition of grassroots environmental justice organizations. They are working to achieve environmental justice by organizing in low-income communities and communities of color, those most impacted by environmental hazards, and by pushing for policies at the federal, state, regional, and local levels that protect public health and the environment. CEJA unites the powerful local organizing efforts of members to create comprehensive opportunities for change at a statewide level by combining grassroots organizing with strategic policy advocacy. You can go to their website, caleja.org, to learn more about the amazing work EHC has been doing over the past years. You can visit the second link being dropped right now. And that's it.
All right.
We've reached the end, my friends.
Well, folks, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks everyone for donating. We've reached $2,010 out of our goals. We are going to be leaving this fundraiser up for at least a few days. So if you feel so inclined, please share across your favorite social media platforms amongst all your friends. And I'm sure that we can hit that. We can surpass that 3,000.
And I also want to say thank you so much to everyone that's already donated and stood in solidarity with the compas at Otay Mesa. But yeah, please share the link on your social medias. We've got about $1,000 more we'd like to raise.
Thank you again to our comrades at Detention Resistance, at the Environmental Health Coalition, and at We Stand United. I can't thank everybody that donated enough. This has been magical, y'all. This is it's stuff like this that really warmed my heart. So
it's hard to warm Nico's heart too.
My cold, dead heart. But yeah. Yeah. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. A lot of you. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for the donations. This has been an incredible day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Blessings, love, and gratitude. Solidarity. Take care. Thank you very much.